Hi, boys and girls. Welcome to another day of our Read Aloud. I'm so excited to read another chapter to you from our Sideways stories. Yesterday, we read about Bibi and how she draws super fast, but then she learned the lesson that not having a bazillion drawings is better, but one that's really good is the best choice. So she kind of changed her mindset. Today, we're going to read about Calvin, who, remember, he was her helper. So here's Calvin. Let's find out about Calvin at Wayside School. So, Calvin had a big, round face. Calvin, said Mrs. Jules, I want you to take this note to Miss Zarvis for me. Miss Zarvis? Asked Calvin. Yes, Miss Zarvis, said Mrs. Jules. You know where she is, don't you? Yes, said Calvin. She's on the 19th story. That's right, Calvin, said Mrs. Jules. Take it to her. Calvin didn't move. Well, what are you waiting for? Asked Mrs. Jules. She's on the 19th story, said Calvin. Yes, we already established that, said Mrs. Jules. The 19th story, Calvin repeated. Yes, Calvin, the 19th story, said Mrs. Jules. Now take it to her before I lose my patience. But Mrs. Jules, said Calvin. Now, Calvin, unless you would rather go home on the kindergarten bus. Yes, ma'am, said Calvin. Slowly he walked out the door. Laughed Terence. Take it to the 19th story? Give it to Miss Zarvis? Hooted Myron. Have fun on the 19th story, called Jason. Calvin stood outside the door to the classroom. He didn't know where to go. As you know, when the builder built Wayside School, he accidentally turned it sideways. But he also forgot to add the 19th story. He built the 18th and the 20th, but no 19th. He said he was sorry. There was also no Miss Zarvis. Miss Zarvis taught the class on the 19th story, and since there was no 19th story, there was no Miss Zarvis. And besides that, as if Calvin didn't already have enough problems, there was no note. Mrs. Jules had never given Calvin the note. Boy, this is just great, thought Calvin, just great. I'm supposed to take a note that I don't have to a teacher who doesn't exist and who teaches on a story that was never built. He didn't know what to do. He walked down to the 18th story, then back up to the 20th, then back down to the 18th and back up to the 20th. There was no 19th story. There never was a 19th story, and there'll never be a 19th story. Calvin walked down to the administration office. He decided to put the note in Miss Zarvis's mailbox. But there wasn't one of those either. That didn't bother Calvin too much, however, since he didn't have a note. He looked out the window and saw Louis, the art teacher, shooting baskets. Louis will know what to do, he thought, so Calvin went outside. Hey, Louis, Calvin called. Hey, Calvin, said Louis. He tossed him the basketball. Calvin dribbled up and took a shot. He missed, but Louis tipped it in. Do you want to play a game? Louis asked. I don't have time. I have to deliver a note to Miss Zarvis up on the 19th story. Then what are you doing all the way down here? Louis asked. Well, there is no 19th story, said Calvin. Then there is no Miss Zarvis? Asked Louis. There is no Miss Zarvis, said Calvin. Well, what are you going to do with the note? Asked Louis. There is no note, said Calvin. I understand, said Louis. Well, that's good, said Calvin, because I sure don't. It's very simple, said Louis. You are not supposed to take no notes to no teachers. You already haven't done it. Calvin still didn't understand. I'll just have to tell Mrs. Jules that I couldn't deliver the note, he said. That's good, said Louis. The truth is always the best. Besides, I don't think I understand what I said either. Calvin walked back up the 30 flights of stairs to Mrs. Jules' class. Thank you very much, Calvin, said Mrs. Jules. Calvin said, that was a very important note, and I'm glad to see that I was able to count on you. Yes, but you see, you delivered the note to Miss Zarvis on the 19th story? Asked Jason. How'd you do it? What do you mean, how did he do it? Asked Mrs. Jules. He gave Miss Zarvis the note. Some people, Jason, are responsible. But you see, Mrs. Jules, said Calvin. The note was very important, said Mrs. Jules. I told Miss Zarvis not to meet me for lunch. Don't worry, said Calvin. She won't. Good, said Mrs. Jules. I have a coffee can full of Tootsie Roll Pops on my desk. You may help yourself to one for being such a good messenger. Thanks, said Calvin, but it really was nothing. And that is Calvin, who delivered no note to no teacher on no 19th story. Next chapter is Myron. I'll see you later for that chapter.